Hey everyone, it's Angela Allen from the Handmade Homestead and Garden, and I'd like to welcome you to Pantry Prep Monday. Let's go. I do a Pantry Prep Monday and a Pantry Prep Thursday every single week. We are right in the middle of the Three Rivers Homestead Pantry Challenge for the month of January. Some people do January, February, or even into March. We're doing just January this year. But to be honest, I do what I call Pantry Prep Mondays every Monday, and every Thursday I do it as well all year long. We maintain a year-round pantry, so our long-term pantry storage isn't just for what we produce in the summer and the winter. We are prepping and putting stuff in our pantry year-round. Depends on things, when things go on sale, when I get things canned. I don't get all of my canning done in the fall. So standing here right now, I have a ton of peach pits and peels, scraps to make peach scrap jam with. I also, because of Christmas and New Year's and Thanksgiving, have a bunch of apple scraps to do apple scrap jam with. Those are also in the freezer, and I still have a few bags, maybe 40 pounds of tomatoes in my freezer that still need to be processed into, probably sauce, spaghetti sauce. We eat a lot of pasta sauce. It makes a great all-around base for cooking. So every Monday, I grocery shop from my basement. I grab a basket and I go downstairs to my long-term pantry, and I bring up a bunch of things to put into the refrigerator to make meals for the first half of the week. I grab some meat to defrost, a couple different kinds, 2 or 3 probably, depends on what I'm grabbing. If it's a great big roast, I probably don't need to grab 3 packages of meat because that will last us a couple of days. But I grab a couple of kinds of vegetables. I grab cans that I needed. I always grab drink mix things. So this morning I grabbed some watermelon lemonade concentrate. I grabbed a container of tomato juice. We like to have tomato juice for breakfast sometimes, so I do keep it canned downstairs. Sometimes I grab cranberry juice or peach juice, something like that. I grab a container of jam if we're out upstairs. Maybe pancake syrup. I love to make corn cob syrup for pancakes, or other kinds of fruit syrups for pancakes or waffles. I will grab that if we're out upstairs and I think I'm going to make sourdough waffles or that kind of thing. What I shop from the basement varies, but we do frequently put stuff back into the basement too. So even though we're doing the pantry challenge, there's no way that I expect to use everything in my basement up. I just want to use the older things and the things that we're not using as often as we should. I want to get more of that stuff used during this challenge. So I am trying to fit that in too. But I thought I would just take you with me today so you could see a typical Pantry Prep Monday for me, see what I'm prepping, putting in my fridge for meals for the next few days, how I'm using the foods from my pantry to accomplish that. All right, let's go. Well, like a lot of my sourdough sisters out there, I usually start every morning by shaping sourdough bread that I've started the night before. So I mixed this last night, and it's been fermenting on the countertop overnight, and I am going to make bagels with it. And that's really becoming kind of a family joke around here because I've made bagels every day for the last 3 days. I'm making anywhere between 16 and 18 bagels a batch, and each day I'm making more because we run out. We go through that entire, dozen and a half of bagels in one day, and there's really just 3 of us in our family, but 2 of those are men, and they have a good appetite. So I'm happy to do it. I love keeping my sourdough starter busy, and I really like the results of these sourdough bagels. So I am double batching this, and I do have a video on YouTube. If you look under my sourdough playlist, you'll find one specifically for doing sourdough bagels. And these are so delicious. My family loves them. Now I'm going to feed my starter since I have a little bit of leftover flour in that measuring cup behind you. But you can see I only keep a very, very small amount of pretty dry starter on my counter at all times. I do keep some sourdough starter in my refrigerator. That's what I call my emergency backup, just in case something happens to the starter that I have going. But I always keep just a small amount on the counter. If I decide I want to make crackers tomorrow, I will mix a whole lot more starter. Or if I want to do pancakes again, I will mix a whole lot more starter. But most of the time, you'll only find that, about a quarter of a cup of starter in my starter bottle, already fed. I feed it every morning, and sometimes I feed it at bedtime too, but it depends on when I mix up my sourdough. Since I do mix up sourdough most of the time before bedtime, that's usually when it gets fed. And since it's so cold in my kitchen right now because it's winter, it doesn't over ferment the starter. So when I use it at night and feed it, it will go until the next night before it needs a feed again. But in the summertime, I do have to feed it a little more frequently. So I do make even less starter in the summer. So I sprinkled some organic cornmeal on the bottom of my tray here. I'm going to shape these bagels. They will go into my oven on the proof setting to proof for a few hours. And in the meantime, downstairs I go to shop the basement and grab some of the things that I need, some canned food, some frozen foods, and back upstairs I go with that big handful. In fact, that basket turned out to be too much for me. I had to have my son help me carry it up so I could carry the extra things in my arms because my little basket was so full. And it may look like I'm grabbing things randomly, but I'm telling you, I did have a plan in my mind when I was down there. And of course, green beans, they are on the menu almost every time I do this. So a couple times a week, I'm pulling out more. So back upstairs I go with all of my goodies, and I'm going to get these organized, and I'm going to prep the fastest things first just to have room on my counter so I can do some serious cooking today. So the fastest and easiest thing to prep right off is this watermelon lemonade concentrate. It's just a matter of pour the jar, add 3 of water, and put that 2-quart container of lemonade right into the refrigerator. That won't last but a couple of hours. We drink it really fast. It's so good. I do keep some of the pulp in my lemonades when I do them with fruit mixtures, and you can see that right in the liquid. And I really like to have that. It really just seems so much fresher. I freeze my onions and peppers in strips. So when I want to use them as diced vegetables, I just literally bang the frozen vegetables right in the bag, right on my granite countertops until they're all broken up. And that works perfectly for me. It's just more versatile. If I diced everything, or if I had a mixture of strips and dices, I would run into trouble with having them in the shape I need them. And I like things a little bit rustic. I'm not trying to run, a 5-star restaurant. So a little rustic is more homemade, and I prefer that anyway. So I brown those for a little bit. I'm going to add a couple of jars of sauce because I'm going to use this for a couple of different meals. Now remember, when I did my last video, I showed you that I had made a shepherd's pie with some ground lamb. Well, my family is not fond of ground lamb, and any kind of lamb, it takes me several meals to get that into us. I think I'm just not going to buy lamb anymore just because it's not a flavor preference. That is the rest of the cottage pie or the shepherd's pie topping. So it's a few small diced roasted potatoes, ground lamb, corn, and peas. And I mixed that into my sauce, and it still had a little bit of a lamby flavor. So what you see me doing there is adding an entire container of pesto that I also brought up from the freezer, just to really kind of mask that lamb flavor and give this a really herby, garlic, onion flavor, basil flavor, something strong enough to mask that flavor. And I did make a big pot of sauce, and you'll see why in a bit. My favorite kitchen towel for bread. And those are the bagels. You can see the sourdough bagels, they rose really well. But I made a little bit of a mistake here. I actually, because I was in a hurry, I put these first bagels into the water before the water was fully boiling. You really need a nice rolling boil before you put your bagels in. This water was really hot. It was almost boiling, but almost did not count as boiling. So what happened is once they were boiled, 30 seconds, 40 seconds on each side, you'll notice they are a little bit flat. So they tasted delicious, but they weren't as beautiful as I wanted them to be. At least those first 4 weren't. They got better after that. I just put the green beans on to cook on the stove in a little bit of leftover chicken broth. And while those are boiling, I'm going to prep these carrots. So these have all been scrubbed, and I'm going to peel them. And all of those peelings will go right into the freezer so I can use them the next time I make bone broth. But after all of these are peeled and the ends are tipped off, I am going to cut some of them in nice big rustic chunks so that I can cook them just as a vegetable this week to have steamed carrots. Again, I will put them right into the soup broth or the bone broth that the green beans are presently cooking in. And we'll cook those chunks down, package them up separately, and we'll have carrots and green beans both cooked and ready in the refrigerator for meals this week. Those are all of those peelings. They will get wrapped up again and put right straight into the freezer. I keep that bag in the top of my freezer and I throw all my veggie scraps in there until I make bone broth again. And that works really well for me. But I always make sure they're absolutely clean scraps that I put into that bag. Now, because those carrots and the green beans were cooked in chicken broth, I cut up some of those carrots in little dices for chicken noodle soup, which I'm going to make at the end of the video too. Put a little bit of a shower cap on there just to keep those moist until they're ready to cook, and just put them aside for now so I can get these green beans out of the broth and seasoned and into the refrigerator. I have noticed some of these later batches of green beans are a little bit stringy, so I've been cooking the green beans a little bit extra long just to help break down that stringiness a bit. I don't usually have problems with stringiness, but I think that some of these were kind of end of the season older beans, and they were a little bit more, tough, I think. So there's the carrots right in the broth. We're going to get those cooking next. And again, that broth we are going to use in soup, so we're keeping it. There's my cooked green beans. We're going to add a little splash of just roasted garlic flavored avocado oil and a little sprinkle of a lemon pepper blend. It does have a tiny bit of salt in it, but most of the time I just dehydrate lemons, grind them up, and use fresh ground black pepper, and I keep it in a bottle so I can use it, because lemon and thyme and garlic is one of my favorite flavors. Now, the leftover broth that's had the green beans and the carrots both cooked in it is going to need some extra chicken broth to make a pot of soup. So I'm defrosting this extra container of chicken bone broth. That will all go in that pan, along with some celery, some carrots, some herbs, and some leftover chicken meat that I already have in the refrigerator in just a little bit when the carrots are all done. I'm going to take out some of those bagels. Like I said, the first ones were a little flat. The second ones came out much better. Always remember, wait till the water's fully boiling. So let's fish out all those carrots, and then that broth will be perfect for chicken noodle soup. And actually it made a really delicious soup. I put a lot of effort into making bone broth, so I don't want to throw away the flavor from vegetables that I've cooked in broth or water. I always add that back to soup. So one of my last things I'm going to make today for the next 3 days is sort of an eggplant Parmesan lasagna. No need to ask me for a recipe because there just isn't one. So we grew these eggplants in the garden, and with extra eggplants and extra big rounds of zucchini, I batter them and then I freeze them directly. I don't even blanch them first. And then I use them in meals like this. Now I made extra sauce, so I'm going to take a jar of the sauce, take it out of the pot, and put it right into the refrigerator. We will have that this week and the next few days in either spaghetti or American chop suey or some other application. And the other half of the sauce I'm going to use to make this eggplant lasagna, if you will. And it's just going to be layers. It's a very meaty sauce. Remember, I put those peppers and onions in it too. The eggplant that you saw me put on the tray a minute ago, I roasted in the oven at 400 for about 30 minutes anyway, until it was brown and crispy and the slices were a little bit dried out, because there's nothing worse than soggy breadcrumbs to me in any kind of casserole. So that's what I did with them. They're nicely browned and they're not too watery. So we're just going to build layers of lasagna, noodles, a little cheese, a little sauce. I used a little bit of homemade ricotta. Somehow it didn't make it into the video, but on one of the layers, and just a little bit of leftover mozzarella I just happened to find in the back of my cheese drawer, and I did put Parmesan on the top of it. So I just layered it up and got that right in the oven too. Cooked it for probably about an hour until those noodles were done. Those are oven ready noodles, so I didn't have to cook them ahead of time. I do that just to save time. I think the noodles are fine doing that. I wouldn't do it otherwise, being an Italian woman. If I didn't think they were authentic enough, I wouldn't use them that way, but they work fine for us. But that took 3 packages of that eggplant out of my freezer. I also do that with eggplant fries as well. I will make eggplant fries, just cut them like French fries, batter them or breadcrumb them, and throw them in the freezer whole in a vacuum seal bag. They don't turn brown. They last really well. And I throw those in the air fryer when I cook them. But I was really looking to get some of this eggplant out of my freezer because I do still have quite a bit in there. This is it after coming out of the oven. And this actually turned out really good. The noodles were really tender, but not soggy. The eggplant wasn't dry, it wasn't leathery, and it wasn't soggy either. It was just a nice consistency that really matched the noodles. And with the extra pesto sauce in there, nobody even noticed that I made it with lamb. Eggplant is such a versatile vegetable, but it really doesn't have a ton of nutrition or a ton of flavor. So what you do to it, it's like tofu. It'll take on the flavor of what you do. And the nutrition in the dish comes from everything pretty much but the eggplant, though it does have some good fiber. So all of that broth, and then the extra bone broth and some vegetables and a big pot of chicken noodle soup went into the refrigerator too. And chicken noodle soup this time of year, I try to always keep soup in my refrigerator every week for grab and go meals, and this was just delicious too. If you enjoy this content, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps us so much with the algorithm. We are actively trying to grow this channel, and our growth depends solely on you and your participation. And know that you are highly appreciated. Well, thank you so much for joining me today while we did our pantry prep Monday. Got some more of the pantry staples in our long-term pantry used up and put into meals that hopefully my family will find delicious and exciting. You never know. We don't have a lot of fussy eaters around here, so that's a good thing. And thanks for participating. Thank you for your like, subscribe, and share. And I will see you next time. Take care.